Today is a great day to make a roast in my crock pot. And I recently just got an excellent deal on a roast at Aldi. It was $2.89 a pound, just under 2 pounds. I think it was $5.89. I'm going to be using some flour, chicken stock, tomato paste, carrots, potatoes, garlic salt, pepper, salt, and I'm actually going to be using some of my homemade thyme that I harvested from my indoor garden this spring. If you don't have any, don't worry about it. It's fine. And then also just feel free to add any spices that you like in particular. And if you'd like to know prices on any of these items, I will be listing that in the description. This recipe is basically a recipe from a chef that I've been following, and he did call for chicken stock. I know that some people will think, chicken stock? Why are you doing chicken stock in a pot roast? Which is exactly what one of my sons asked me. But the chef said that he did prefer the taste of the chicken. It made it a little bit lighter, and I have to agree, based on a taste test, we do actually prefer the taste of chicken, so it makes sense to me. We're going to try it and see how it goes. The beef will be releasing its own juices, so it will be a combination of the chicken broth and the beef juices. And first we're going to see, here's a picture of what the normal price of the roast was. And by the way, when they set these out, people were grabbing these left and right, so they were gone in no time. I was happy to be there when I was to be able to grab this. But we're just going to take it out and we're going to wash it. And then we're going to dredge it in flour. Now normally when I make my pot roast, I do dredge it and I always sear it, and then I throw it into the pot with a packet of onion soup mix, and that's really delicious. Maybe throw in some potatoes and carrots halfway through. But this time I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and season the meat. Now I season the meat directly, as well as I will go ahead and season the flour as well. So I just want to make sure that I'm imparting as much flavor onto that beef as possible. And so I'm just going to go ahead and pat it in. Now, when I was reading the recipe for this chuck roast, the chef talks about spanking the flour into the meat, which I found more than a little bit amusing. But if you do see me, well, I'm going to say patting. I'm going to call it patting, not spanking, because that sounds better. But if you do see me patting, that is why. I'm trying to stay as true to the original recipe as possible. Usually what I'll do is I will cook a recipe the first way through exactly the way they say, and then I'll take liberties with it from there on out. But I do like to make it directly the way they say at least once. So here you see me patting the meat. And I have to say, I did feel a little bit ridiculous doing that. Usually I just press it down into the flour and dredge it that way. But they're always thinking of new ways to do this, so. And then I'm just going to sear it in my cast iron skillet. You want the oil to be hot. You just want to get a nice brown on there before you pop it into the crock pot. This crock pot recipe is great for those who have to work during the day. You can pop it in to the crock pot in the morning and it'll be ready when you get home. I don't like to put my vegetables, well, it depends on what vegetables, but if I'm cooking carrots or potatoes, I don't like to put those in when I put the meat in, because if you do, they'll be falling apart by the time you serve it. I like them to hold their shape, and especially carrots, I want them to be a nice vibrant orange color. So I'm going to put these in when I have about an hour left to go, and they'll turn out perfectly. And for these, I did decide to go with mashed potatoes, just because I had a vision in my mind. I wanted to have the mashed potatoes, pour in the gravy over it, and then put the chunk of meat on the top. So that's what I'm going to do. And I've had a thing lately for mashed potatoes. I'm really enjoying them. I'm using the potatoes that I got from my extreme grocery budget haul recently that I did, and they were 99 cents for a 10-pound bag, which I thought was amazing. I also recently got a 10-pound bag for $1.49. Both of those times were at Aldi, so I do love shopping there because it's a great value. And I also got the carrots there. So the carrots were 65 cents a pound, so I got 1 pound of those, and that was about 6 carrots. So I'm only using 4 in this recipe. This recipe overall is a great value. It's under $10, and you're gonna, if you did spend the 99 cents on the potatoes, obviously you'd have a lot left over, and you'd have a couple of carrots left over as well. Now for the meat, I would say it will feed a family of 4 if you have children eating. I would say if you had 4 adults, you might be a little light on the meat, depending on how much, your family eats. It's hard to say. I mean, everybody eats differently, but I think you'd be fine if you had some kids in the mix to feed a family of 4. You always want to heavily salt your water that you're cooking your potatoes in for the mashed potatoes, and it's going to help impart the salt into the potato more. And we're going to take a tablespoon of the tomato paste and put that in the broth, and that's going to have some added flavor as well. And I will say that I also do, videos on Extreme Budget Challenge for groceries, and menus off of those. And for this meal, this may seem a little bit expensive for that group of people looking to do the extreme grocery budgeting, but I have to say that there are a few added bonuses to this meal. When it's raining outside, when you're in lockdown for coronavirus, we're all stuck in our houses. Having this in the crock pot all day just makes the house smell wonderful. Everybody in the house can smell it. They know something good is cooking, and it just gives a feeling of comfort, a feeling of security, and it's something that your kids take with them for the rest of their lives. They always have these memories, that we equate with food. And at least I know I do, and most people I've spoken to do. They're just intertwined. But I just think you get some added bonuses when you make this dish, and it may be a treat for you. It's definitely a treat for us. So I think it's a good value, but you definitely want to get your meat on sale. It's really important to shop the sales. They always do have meat on a rotating sale basis, so depending on what you're looking for, if you just wait long enough, it will come up for sale, and you can always pop it in the freezer, and then, pull it out before you want to use it. At first I added some almond milk in here, and then I decided it wasn't quite creamy enough, so I did add some regular milk in, and then I just keep, adding some salt and tasting and getting it to the perfect place that I wanted to have it. And anytime you're cooking a piece of meat, a fatty piece of meat, you are going to want to skim the fat off the top of the sauce while you're cooking it and just ladle it out and remove that. Anytime you want to thicken up your broth, all you need to do is add some flour to the mix. However, you don't want to add it directly to the hot broth or you'll have a problem on your hands. It'll clump up really badly. You just want to add, say, a tablespoon at a time of flour to some cold water and then mix that up till it's a smooth consistency and then add that to your hot broth. I always start with a tablespoon and then I'll see how that goes and then I'll wait a little while, and if it's not thick enough, I'll add it another tablespoon. And that's what I did in this case, and as it turns out, 2 tablespoons were perfect. If you can't afford chuck roast, you can also do this, modify this recipe and do it with a chicken. If you want, you can make that chicken last longer, cut the chicken in half or take off some parts of the chicken and then just throw the chicken in there. You don't have to use broth. The chicken will make its own broth. And you can basically do the same thing with chicken. So you can always modify a recipe. If you do end up cooking a chicken in your crock pot, make sure you cover it with water. I tasted the broth at this point and I felt it needed a little bit more salt and garlic as well. Even though I didn't put my carrots in until about an hour before the roast was finished, they did end up cooking a little bit faster than that, so it's not a big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and take them out now, and I'll just pop them back into the liquid to warm them up before I serve the dish. I will say that they are the perfect color, the right consistency, and they are delicious. Go ahead and cut off any larger pieces of fat that you see. The meat was delicious. It was so tender and just falling apart, and it had amazing flavor. I will say if there was a runner-up to the show, it would definitely have been the gravy. I'm not sure why I didn't get a picture of ladling it over the mashed potatoes. That would have been a beautiful shot, but I will say that the gravy was exceptional, and I really like the idea of using the chicken broth instead of the beef broth because it was a little bit lighter. And when the beef already is kind of a heavy meat, so just having that change in the broth was really nice. I think I'm going to do that from now on. I'd like to know what you guys think. If you like my video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching my video. I'm so happy to have you here. And I hope you guys stay safe out there.